In a world dominated by satellites, supercomputers, and scientific breakthroughs, it's easy to believe that we've unraveled all of Earth's deepest secrets. A narrative of progress suggests that every ancient mystery has been charted, dissected, and explained, that the modern mind has pierced the veil of time. But that confidence is misleading, because hidden beneath centuries of dust, buried in frozen lakes, scorched deserts, and dense jungles, lie enigmas that science still can't touch. Ancient puzzles that remain stubbornly unsolved, mocking our instruments and defying our logic. Despite decades, even centuries of investigation, these places and events offer no answers. Only silence, only contradiction. This is not the story of what we know. This is the story of what still refuses to be known. The anomalies that push back against every theory and remind us that for all our advancements, the ancient world still holds secrets beyond the reach of modern understanding. If these mysteries remain unsolved, they don't just linger as curiosities. From the past, they begin to erode the foundations of what we believe about human history itself. Because if thousands of years ago, people were building structures we still can't replicate, disappearing without a trace, or encoding knowledge we can't decipher, then maybe our timeline isn't as complete as we think. Maybe our assumptions about ancient intelligence, global connections, or the very limits of human capability need to be rewritten. These aren't just gaps in the archaeological record. They're cracks in the mirror we hold up to understand ourselves. And if science can't explain them, then what else might we be missing? What truths still lie hidden beneath layers of time, waiting to rewrite everything we thought we knew? Stick with us, because what follows isn't speculation, it's evidence. Real, documented, unresolved. And it might just challenge the way you see the ancient world forever. In 525 BC, at the height of Persian power, a massive army of 50,000 men vanished into the sands of Egypt's western desert and was never seen again. No bodies, no weapons, no bones, no camps, no signs of a battle or retreat, just silence. The kind of silence that doesn't whisper, it screams. For over 2,500 years, historians, archaeologists, and scientists have tried to solve this ancient mystery. They've sent expeditions, scanned satellite imagery, dug through records and dunes, and found nothing. A military force large enough to conquer kingdoms simply evaporated into myth. And yet, this isn't legend. This was a real army, recorded by multiple ancient sources. An event so unsettling that even the most rational scholars are forced to admit, something happened here that we still can't explain. Cambyses II, son of Cyrus the Great, was not a king content to inherit his father's empire. He wanted to expand it. After seizing Egypt in a swift campaign, Cambyses crowned himself pharaoh, aligning himself with the gods and rulers of one of the world's oldest civilizations. But conquest wasn't enough. He wanted to cement his authority in the eyes of both his people and the subjugated Egyptians. To do that, he set his sights on a symbolic target, the Oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis. Deep within the Libyan desert, the oracle was revered by both Egyptians and foreign rulers. Alexander the Great would later travel there seeking divine endorsement. Cambyses, perhaps hoping for the same, or fearing a prophecy against his reign, sent an elite force to capture or destroy the oracle. That decision would become the genesis of one of history's most chilling disappearances. The army Cambyses assembled was not hastily put together. These were not fresh conscripts or poorly trained mercenaries. This was a professional Persian force, 50,000 strong, hardened by years of military campaigning. They were outfitted with supplies, animals, scouts, and Egyptian guides, familiar with the desert's treacherous terrain. Ancient texts emphasize the precision and discipline of the Persian military. This was a well-oiled machine, not a ragtag band of wanderers. And yet, it disappeared with less trace than a single lost traveler. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, the first to record the event, the army departed from Thebes and began its long journey westward across a barren stretch of desert toward Siwa. After 7 days of marching, they reached an oasis, likely Karga or Dakla. From there, they continued toward Siwa, but somewhere between that last known point and their final destination, the desert swallowed them whole. Herodotus describes what happened next with a mix of awe and horror. A massive sandstorm, violent and sudden, swept across the landscape, burying the entire army beneath tons of shifting dunes. Men, animals, weapons, all entombed in sand, gone in a single storm. To this day, Herodotus' account is the most widely referenced explanation for the army's disappearance, and yet it remains unverified. Modern researchers have long debated the plausibility of Herodotus' version. Sandstorms, particularly in Egypt's western desert, are common. They can be brutal, blinding, and lethal. But could a single storm wipe out 50,000 men and leave behind no trace whatsoever? No visible mounds, no exposed bones, no armor fragments carried by wind or unearthed by erosion. Critics argue that even in the harshest conditions, some remnant would eventually surface. Entire cities buried by volcanic ash have been uncovered centuries later. Skeletons from older epochs have survived beneath dunes. So why has nothing of Cambus's army ever emerged? In the 1990s, hopes were reignited when a team of Italian archaeologists, Angelo and Alfredo Castiglione, discovered fragments of ancient weaponry, human remains, and Persian-style artifacts in a remote region near the Gilf Khyber Plateau. Their findings sparked headlines around the world. Could this finally be the evidence everyone had been waiting for? At first glance, it seemed promising. The jewelry resembled Achaemenid designs. The bones were scattered across what could have been an ancient path. But radiocarbon testing revealed a different story. The artifacts dated to the Roman era, not the Persian. Once again, the trail went cold. Since then, researchers have used advanced tools, satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and infrared scans to map the desert floor in meticulous detail. Massive digital surveys have combed the sand for anomalies or geometric disturbances that might suggest buried camps or mass graves. But the landscape remains silent. The Siwa route, the supposed path of the lost army, offers no clues. Not a single confirmed piece of evidence has been recovered. It's as if the desert itself is guarding the secret, or perhaps rewriting the story. Without hard evidence, theories have multiplied. One possibility is that the Egyptian guides, either through betrayal or miscalculation, led the army astray. Historical records show that local guides in antiquity sometimes sabotaged enemy forces. The western desert is vast and filled with false trails and mirages. A deliberate misdirection could have sent the Persians into a maze of impassable terrain, with no escape. In such a scenario, dehydration and heat stroke would have set in quickly. The army might have fractured, split up, and perished in scattered pockets, leaving no single burial site to be found. Another theory suggests ambush. Local desert tribes familiar with the land and hostile to Persian expansion may have launched a strategic attack. If they knew the terrain and attacked at night or during a storm, they could have overwhelmed even a well-equipped force. After the slaughter, they could have burned the evidence or buried the dead to avoid retaliation. However, this too lacks archaeological support. There are no known tribal oral histories that reference such a victory, and no mass graves have been found. There are even more extreme theories: supernatural intervention, divine punishment, portals to other realms. While these ideas stretch the boundaries of plausibility, they reflect something important. The scale and completeness of the army's disappearance is so total, so absolute, that it pushes rational minds to search beyond. Reason, perhaps the most sobering theory, is the simplest. Navigational failure. The desert is deceptive. Its dunes shift daily. Landmarks vanish. Without a clear path and enough water, even the best armies dissolve into chaos. Historical examples abound. Alexander the Great's forces nearly perished. In the Gedrosian Desert, Roman legions disappeared in Germania. Entire Mongol contingents were lost in frozen mountain passes. Perhaps Cambyses' army was not the victim of sabotage or storm, but hubris, a belief that sheer numbers could overcome nature. And nature won today. The disappearance of Cambyses' army remains one of the oldest active missing persons cases in the world. It is a mystery that blends recorded history with chilling silence. Every grain of sand across Egypt's western expanse could be hiding a fragment of truth. But until one of those grains gives it up, until a bone, a blade, or a banner is found, the story remains incomplete. A blank space in the pages of history that refuses to be filled. And perhaps that's why it endures. In a world of instant answers and mapped terrain, the idea that 50,000 trained soldiers could simply vanish, not metaphorically, but literally, reminds us of something we often forget. The past is not fully known. And sometimes it chooses to stay hidden. Stay hidden. High in the Indian Himalayas, at over 16,000 feet above sea level, there lies a small, frozen lake. It's quiet here. The wind cuts like a knife. The surrounding slopes are barren, dusted with snow, with nothing but jagged peaks and an oppressive silence that seems to warn intruders to turn back. The lake itself is unassuming, barely 40 meters across, frozen for most of the year. But when the ice begins to thaw, the surface reveals something deeply disturbing. Human bones. Dozens of them. Skulls, femurs, rib cages. Hundreds of skeletal remains scattered beneath the shallow water, some exposed on the banks, others still submerged. No markers, no graves, no single event to explain their presence. Just an ancient killing ground frozen in time. This is Rupkund, known today as Skeleton Lake, and what lies here still refuses to be explained. The mystery began in 1942, when a British forest ranger named Hari Kishan Madwell stumbled upon the site while surveying the remote Himalayan slopes. During World War II, at first he thought he had discovered a mass grave from a recent tragedy, perhaps Japanese soldiers, lost and frozen during a clandestine campaign across India's northern frontier. The war had spread strange rumors, secret movements, hidden routes. It was a reasonable assumption. But as the ranger looked closer, that explanation collapsed. The bones weren't fresh. They were ancient, weathered by countless winters, scattered. By time, the ranger reported his discovery, and investigators soon followed. But what they found only deepened the confusion. There weren't just a handful of skeletons. There were hundreds. Men, women, even children. No clear signs of clothing or weapons. No jewelry, no writings, no graves. Just bones slowly surfacing each year as the ice pulled back. Initial attempts to identify the victims led nowhere. For decades, it was assumed they all died in a single tragic event. Maybe a pilgrimage gone wrong, or a group of travelers caught in a sudden storm. But that theory never fully satisfied the facts. And then, nearly 70 years after the lake's discovery, science returned to ask new questions and got answers no one expected. In 2019, an international team of geneticists, archaeologists, and historians analyzed 38 skeletons from Rupkund using advanced DNA testing and radiocarbon dating. What they uncovered shattered all earlier assumptions. The bones did not belong to a single group. They did not come from the same region. And, most shockingly, they did not die at the same time. Instead, the remains at Skeleton Lake span over 1,000 years. Some skeletons dated back to the 7th century, others to the 10th. Some were as recent as the 1800s. This wasn't one event. It was many, multiple groups, multiple centuries, multiple tragedies, all converging in the same deadly place. Even more astonishing were the genetic origins. Of the skeletons tested, 23 showed South Asian ancestry, expected for a location in the Indian Himalayas, but 14 had origins from the Eastern Mediterranean. Not just vague Eurasian markers, but specific genetic connections to present-day Crete and mainland Greece. And at least one individual came from Southeast Asia. These people weren't from the same land, or even the same side of the planet. What could possibly explain why individuals from such different regions, separated by oceans and centuries, would all end up dead at the same remote Himalayan lake? Theories quickly emerged. Some proposed that Rupkund was an ancient pilgrimage site, a sacred destination for people seeking divine intervention, blessings, or absolution. In India, the Himalayas have always held deep spiritual meaning, the abode of gods, the testing ground for ascetics. Local folklore tells of King Jastival of Kannauj, who centuries ago traveled through the mountains with his pregnant queen and royal entourage, heading toward the shrine of Nanda Devi. But according to legend, the goddess was angered by their extravagant display. The queen, pregnant and adorned in luxury, violated sacred customs. In her fury, the goddess unleashed a hailstorm, giant, ice-hard stones the size of cricket balls that killed the entire party where they stood. To this day, villagers believe the skeletons at Rupkund are the remains of that cursed journey. Makes the legend eerily plausible is the forensic evidence. Several of the skulls at Rupkund show blunt force trauma, but not from weapons. The fractures are consistent with impacts from above, not horizontal strikes. The shape and damage match exactly what would be expected from large hailstones. And these findings are consistent across multiple skeletons. Scientific analysis has confirmed that a massive, sudden hailstorm could indeed cause such injuries, especially in an area as exposed and unforgiving as Rupkund, where there's no shelter, no trees, and no escape from the sky. But if that explains one group, what about the others? Why would Mediterranean travelers, centuries later, make the same fatal journey? There are no known trade routes between Greece and Rupkund, no records of cultural exchanges or religious pilgrimages that span such distances. Some researchers speculate that these travelers were early explorers, perhaps scouting unknown lands or mapping uncharted regions of the world. Others think they may have been mercenaries, traders, or spiritual seekers drawn by stories of the Himalayas' mysticism. One hypothesis even connects them to lost detachments from Alexander the Great's campaigns in northern India, though there is no hard evidence to support this. Still, the presence of such distant DNA in such a remote, hostile place remains. One of the most baffling aspects of the mystery, other theories suggest darker possibilities. That some of the deaths may have been ritualistic, acts of devotion or sacrifice carried out in isolation. In certain ancient traditions, spiritual ascension or purity required physical suffering, even death. Perhaps some groups journeyed to Rupkund knowingly, believing that dying in such a sacred and harsh place would grant divine favor. But if so, why so many people? And why across so many centuries? There's no evidence of ritual objects, no altars, no temples, just silence. Still, other experts point to natural explanations: avalanches, sudden weather shifts, or hypothermia. The Himalayas are brutal. Temperature drops of 30 degrees in minutes, blinding whiteouts, altitude sickness. It wouldn't take much. A missed trail, a delayed departure for a group to perish quickly. The region is a known death trap for the unprepared. But again, this only explains the how. It does not explain the why. Why were so many people from different cultures and centuries even there to begin with. Modern efforts to preserve the site have become urgent. Climate change is melting the lake faster each year. As the ice retreats, more bones surface, exposed to the elements and vulnerable to decay, theft, or vandalism. Some tourists take fragments as souvenirs. Others move or disturb the remains. Local authorities and international researchers now work to protect the site, balancing scientific inquiry with deep cultural respect. After all, these were real people. Each set of bones belonged to someone with a name, a purpose, a final thought before the cold took them. And still, the questions remain. Rupkond is not just a mass grave. It's a timeline of human tragedy layered beneath ice. A place where science, myth, and death intersect. And the more we study it, the less clear the answers become. Was it coincidence? A convergence of fate? Or is there something about this lake, this exact place, that draws people in, again and again, across borders and eras, only to leave them lifeless beneath the water? No one can say for certain. And maybe that's the most haunting part of all. In the arid deserts of southern Peru, where rainfall is nearly non-existent and the horizon blurs into shimmering heat, there lies one of the greatest enigmas of the ancient world. To the untrained eye, the ground appears barren, just flat, empty soil scattered with dark stones under a relentless sun. But something extraordinary is hidden in plain sight. Massive geoglyphs, giant shapes carved directly into the desert floor, stretching for kilometers. Birds with wingspans longer than football fields, spirals, straight lines that run so precisely they seem laser-drawn. Monkeys with curled tails, a spider with delicate limbs, and most famously, a humanoid figure with large, staring eyes etched into a hillside, gazing outward with unknown purpose. These are the Nazca lines, and to this day, no one knows why they exist. Discovered by the wider world less than a century ago, the Nazca lines have captivated scientists, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists alike. What makes them so strange is not just their size or design. It's the simple, mind-bending fact that they can only be seen properly from above. From the ground, they are nearly invisible, appearing as faint discolorations or shallow trenches. In the dirt, it wasn't until the 1920s and 30s, when commercial aircraft began flying over Peru, that pilots first noticed the massive figures beneath their wings. From the sky, everything became clear, images too vast to comprehend from the earthbound perspective. Who made these figures? And how, in a time before flight, before drones, satellites, or even basic towers, could anyone design shapes that only make sense when viewed from the clouds? The Nazca civilization, which flourished between 100 BC and 800 AD, is credited with creating these designs. They were a sophisticated desert people, known for their textiles, pottery, and intricate irrigation systems called puquillos, which channeled scarce groundwater into spiraling aqueducts. But they left no written records. No scrolls, no glyphs, no carvings that explain their intentions. All that survives are their artifacts and the lines. The lines themselves are deceptively simple. The top layer of dark, oxidized desert stone was scraped away to reveal the lighter soil beneath, creating sharp visual contrasts. And because the Nazca Desert is so dry and windless, the lines have remained remarkably well preserved for over 1,500 years. But their simplicity only raises more questions. How were they able to draw such massive, proportionate images without aerial guidance? Some of the lines stretch for 9 to 10 kilometers with almost no deviation. The animal figures, the hummingbird, the condor, the whale, are perfectly balanced in scale. Even today, creating such artwork would require careful planning, measurements, and perspective. Researchers have attempted to reconstruct the process using tools the Nazca might have had. ropes, wooden stakes, basic surveying techniques, experiments have shown that it's theoretically possible to create large-scale geoglyphs using only ground-level measurements. But while that might explain how, it doesn't come close to answering why. Several theories have been proposed. One of the earliest and most widely accepted came from German mathematician and archaeologist Maria Reich, who devoted her life to studying the lines. She believed the figures were part of a vast astronomical calendar. Certain lines, she claimed, aligned with the solstices, equinoxes, and rising or setting positions of celestial bodies. If true, this would mean the Nazca used the desert as a kind of observatory, a sacred map for reading the sky and planning agricultural rituals. And while some alignments appear convincing, not all figures match celestial patterns. Many animal geoglyphs don't point to any known constellation or seasonal shift. If this was a calendar, its logic remains obscure. Another prominent theory comes from archaeologist Johann Reinhard, who suggests the lines served ceremonial purposes related to water, a precious and sacred resource in the desert. He believes the geoglyphs were pathways for ritual processions, meant to invoke rainfall or honor deities associated with fertility. Some lines lead directly to mountain springs or ancient Pukpio sites, supporting this idea. In a culture that lived on the edge of survival, it would make sense to turn to symbolic acts for help from the gods. But again, if the rituals were meant to be witnessed by the divine, it still raises the same central paradox. Why design figures that only the gods, or someone in the sky, could see? This leads to a third theory, more spiritual than functional. The lines were messages, not for humans, but for celestial beings. Perhaps the Nazca believed in sky gods or spirits that watched from above. Drawing massive, visible symbols into the earth could have been their way of communicating with the heavens, like billboards to the divine, visible only from the sky. This explanation, while speculative, fits the symbolic and religious tone of many ancient cultures. In a world ruled by omens, sun gods, and spirits, building for the invisible may have been completely rational, but not everyone stops there. In the 1960s and 70s, the Nazca lines became a focal point for ancient astronaut theorists. Erich von Däniken, in his book Chariots of the Gods, argued that the lines were landing strips for alien spacecraft, visual guides for beings from another world. He pointed to the so-called astronaut figure etched into a hillside as evidence. Its bulging eyes and outstretched hand resemble, to some, a space traveler. While mainstream archaeologists reject these claims, citing lack of any credible evidence, the alien hypothesis persists in popular culture, fueling documentaries, internet forums, and pseudo-scientific speculation. But beyond the fringe, theories and scientific models lies the core mystery. Why did an entire civilization, over hundreds of years, commit so much effort to building something they themselves could not fully see? Was it faith? Was it ritual? Was it communication? Or something we still haven't imagined? In 2019, researchers from Yamagata University in Japan used high-resolution satellite imagery and artificial intelligence to detect over 140 new geoglyphs, previously missed due to erosion and fading. These new designs include snakes, fish, llamas, and even what appears to be a humanoid figure wearing elaborate ceremonial attire. The technology is opening new doors, but the mystery remains sealed. Despite decades of study and modern tools, we still don't know exactly what the lines meant to the people who made them. Efforts to preserve the Nazca lines have become increasingly urgent. Encroaching urbanization, mining, and tourism pose serious threats. In 2014, activists from Greenpeace damaged part of the hummingbird geoglyph while staging a protest, leaving permanent marks in the fragile soil. And despite UNESCO protection, illegal vehicle tracks and careless visitors continue to erode these delicate symbols. The desert, once a protector, now struggles to guard what time has managed to preserve. Still, the lines endure. They continue to draw eyes, questions, and speculation. They represent not just an ancient culture's obsession with the sky, but our modern inability to fully comprehend it. And maybe that's the point. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. Some are meant to humble us. Remind us that even with satellites and supercomputers, there are things humanity still can't explain. And perhaps, buried in that silence, is the echo of something greater. The year was 1901, and the waters off the tiny Greek island of Antikythera were calm, deceptively so. Beneath the surface, in the dim light of the Aegean Sea, divers searching for sponges stumbled upon something unexpected. At first, it looked like any other ancient shipwreck, encrusted amphorae, broken pottery, and scattered statues littering the seafloor. But as the divers explored further, they uncovered a cluster of corroded bronze fragments wedged between the wreckage. Unassuming, partially fused by centuries of seawater and pressure, it looked like a lump of metal and stone. They brought it to the surface anyway, unaware that they were holding what would become one of the most baffling discoveries in archaeological history. What they had recovered, unknowingly, was the first piece of a machine that simply should not have existed. A device that defied every historical assumption about ancient engineering and technology. Today, it is known as the Antikythera mechanism, named after the island near where it was found. But calling it a mechanism doesn't quite capture what it is. Scholars now believe the device was a highly advanced analog computer built over 2,000 years ago, capable of calculating astronomical positions, predicting solar and lunar eclipses, and possibly even tracking the timing of Olympic Games. It is often described as the world's first computer. And yet, it predates the next comparable piece of complex gear-driven machinery by over 1,000 years. From the moment it was recovered, the device challenged every expectation. The shipwreck itself was dated to between 70 and 60 BCE, placing the Antikythera mechanism somewhere in the 2nd to early 1st century BCE. At the time, Greek engineering was already impressive, with catapults, pumps, and even some automata, but nothing remotely like this had ever been found. The mechanism's design was centuries ahead of its time, using a level of precision that wouldn't be seen again until the development of mechanical clocks in the early 14th century. And this wasn't a device made for royalty or legend. It was real, tangible, meticulously crafted, a product of knowledge that modern historians never imagined ancient civilizations could possess. Once cleaned and studied more closely, the fragments revealed something astonishing. Housed originally in a wooden case no larger than a shoebox, the mechanism contained dozens of tiny bronze gears with teeth carefully cut into them. Several circular dials were mounted on its front and back, with faded inscriptions around their edges. As early reconstructions progressed, researchers began to understand that this wasn't just decorative, it was functional. The gears worked together to model the complex motions of celestial bodies. One turn of the main crank could simulate the cycles of the moon, the sun, and possibly even the known planets, not in a symbolic way, but in mathematically accurate terms. The craftsmanship of the gears alone defied belief. Some were so small they required magnification to study. Their teeth were evenly spaced and cut to interlock at precise ratios, suggesting not only knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, but advanced tool-making techniques, tools that, according to the official timeline of history, simply did not exist in that era. How could this be possible? The Greeks, particularly the followers of Archimedes and Hipparchus, were brilliant thinkers. But theories and equations are one thing. Building a physical machine with such mechanical complexity is another. The astronomical functions of the mechanism are, what make it truly mind-bending. Using a system of gears based on the 19-year metonic cycle, a period over which the phases of the moon recur on the same days, the device could track the position of the moon and sun with incredible precision. Additional gearing predicted eclipses using the 18-year Saros cycle. These calculations weren't theoretical approximations. They produced actual, trackable outputs on rotating dials. Later discoveries showed that the back dials even included a 4-year calendar cycle that may have been used to time the Pan-Hellenic Games, including the ancient Olympics. One of the most fascinating features is its treatment of the moon. The mechanism accounted for the moon's irregular orbit, known today as the lunar anomaly, a deviation caused by the elliptical nature of its path. To replicate this, the Antikythera mechanism used a system of epicyclic gearing with a pin and slot mechanism, a sophisticated concept not thought to have been invented until the Renaissance. Somehow, the creators of this device had not only observed the moon's irregular motion, but had engineered a way to model it mechanically. This level of insight wasn't just centuries ahead of its time, it was millennia. Even today, with 3D X-ray imaging, CT scans, and computer modeling, researchers are still trying to fully decode how every part of the mechanism worked. Fragments, originally dismissed as corroded debris, have been digitally reconstructed into working models that continue to reveal new surprises. Researchers have speculated that the original device had at least 30 known gears, though some believe there may have been as many as 60. Only about a third of the mechanism survives, and the rest is lost, either destroyed at sea or still buried in the seabed. What's been recovered, however, has already rewritten our understanding of ancient science. The gear ratios used in the mechanism suggest deep mathematical knowledge. One particular gear has 223 teeth, matching exactly the number of lunar months in a Saros cycle, which is crucial for predicting eclipses. Another gear is believed to simulate the synodic month, the time between successive new moons. These weren't random choices. The engineers behind the Antikythera mechanism knew what they were doing. They weren't just tinkerers. They were scientists, mathematicians, and artisans operating on a level we previously didn't think existed in the ancient world. And this raises a deeper question. How could such a device appear in isolation? There are no other known machines from this era that match its complexity. No records describing its construction. No written instructions. No other copies or versions recovered anywhere in the ancient world. It's as if someone built a 19th century pocket watch in the middle of the Iron Age and then vanished without leaving behind a trace of the knowledge required to create it. Despite its undeniable sophistication, the Antikythera mechanism stands alone. No other artifact of comparable complexity from the ancient world has ever been found. This fact alone makes it more than an archaeological curiosity. It makes it a historical anomaly. Scholars have searched the ancient record for anything that could explain how such a device was conceived, designed, and built, but the trail remains cold. No blueprints, no technical writings, no mentions in the works of Aristotle, Ptolemy, or Pliny the Elder. Nothing in ancient texts hints at machines of this type, despite the Greeks being prolific record keepers and theorists. The mechanism's silence in the historical record is deafening. And yet, the evidence is real. The surviving fragments contain tiny Greek inscriptions etched into the bronze surfaces, faded but legible under high-resolution imaging. These inscriptions were not decorative. They served as labels, guides, and explanations for the dials and functions. They describe celestial cycles, eclipses, and calendar events. Some scholars believe these texts were meant as a user manual of sorts, the ancient equivalent of an operating guide. But even these hints provide no clues about who built it, or more importantly, why. To date, no duplicates or variants of the Antikythera mechanism have been found anywhere in the ancient world. If this device was part of a larger scientific tradition, where are the others? Machines of such complexity don't simply appear in a vacuum. They evolve through trial, iteration, and shared knowledge. That is how technology grows. But the Antikythera mechanism appears as a fully formed anomaly, like an island of advanced engineering surrounded by a sea of much simpler tools. Some historians have tried to connect the device to specific individuals or schools of thought. One name that often surfaces is Hipparchus, the renowned Greek astronomer who lived in the 2nd century BCE. Hipparchus developed precise models of the moon's motion and was known for his work on celestial prediction. His ideas, particularly about the moon's elliptical orbit, appear to be embedded in the gearing of the mechanism. However, there's no definitive proof he was involved, and the timeline remains speculative. Others have pointed to Archimedes, the legendary inventor and mathematician from Syracuse. Known for his complex machines and war engines, Archimedes possessed the theoretical genius to inspire such a device, but he lived a century earlier, and no writings connect him to anything. Like the Antikythera mechanism, modern researchers haven't given up. Over the past 2 decades, major technological advancements have allowed scholars to look deeper into the device than ever before. Using 3D X-ray tomography, CT scanning, and surface imaging, scientists have mapped the mechanism's internal components down to microscopic detail without having to physically dismantle its fragile remains. These digital reconstructions have led to significant breakthroughs. For example, they revealed hidden gears and inscriptions that had previously been invisible beneath layers of corrosion. One of the biggest revelations came in 2005 when a team from Cardiff University, in collaboration with scientists from the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, created the most accurate model of the device to date. Their reconstructions revealed that the mechanism likely had at least 37 gears, and possibly more. They confirmed that it could predict eclipses, model the moon's motion with staggering accuracy, and display the cycles of celestial events using spiral dials on the back. Some even speculate it may have tracked planetary movements, although the evidence for this remains incomplete. What's particularly fascinating is that the front dial of the mechanism appears to represent the zodiac calendar, the 12 signs used in astrological systems. Around the edge are markings for the months, with pointers that likely indicated the positions of the sun and moon. This inclusion has sparked debate about the role of astrology in ancient science. Was the mechanism used purely for observation and prediction? Or did it serve religious or ceremonial purposes as well? In antiquity, the lines between astronomy and astrology were often blurred. The stars were not just points of light. They were portents, gods, cycles of fate. This leads to even deeper speculation. Who would need such a device? And for what purpose? One possibility is that it belonged to a wealthy scholar or noble with both the education and resources to commission such a complex tool. Others suggest it may have been used in a temple setting, perhaps by priests tracking celestial omens or timing sacred festivals. Still others argue it was a teaching tool, built to demonstrate the harmony of the cosmos and the predictability of celestial cycles to students of the Pythagorean tradition. But again, all of this is conjecture. The mechanism's true role, whether spiritual, scientific, educational, or all three, remains lost in time. Equally mysterious is how such knowledge vanished. If the Greeks of the 2nd century BCE could construct machines this advanced, why didn't this technology spread? Why didn't the Romans, famed for their engineering, adopt or preserve it? Why weren't similar devices built in Alexandria, the intellectual hub of the ancient world? Some theorists blame the eventual decline of the Roman Empire and the loss of scientific progress during the early medieval period. Others point to the fragility of specialized knowledge, easily lost if not copied, written down or passed on. The destruction of libraries, the fall of cities, or the death of a single skilled artisan could wipe out generations of advancement. The Antikythera mechanism may be a product of that kind of knowledge collapse, a machine from a vanished lineage of invention. A hint of what might have been a whole tradition of Greek analog computing, wiped away by war, decay, or indifference. Today, the device sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, encased in glass, surrounded by endless questions. Replicas exist in museums and research centers. Videos and animations show how it might have worked. But the original, fragmented and oxidized, remains elusive in more ways than one. It is a technological ghost, too advanced for its time, too unique to ignore, and too incomplete to fully understand. And while modern machines decode more of its secrets each year, the fundamental question still haunts the edges of every academic, paper, and research project. How many other inventions were lost to the depths? How many ships sank with devices like this, or greater, aboard? If the Antikythera mechanism is the only survivor of its kind, what does that say about the limits of what we think we know about history? It's easy to view history as a straight line, primitive to modern, slow progress over centuries. But the mechanism complicates that. It's a reminder that progress can leap forward, stall, vanish, and then be rediscovered thousands of years later. That knowledge can be both fragile and explosive, capable of bursting into the world ahead of its time, only to fade into obscurity again. And so the mystery endures. For over 4,000 years, they have stood motionless on the Giza Plateau, 3 massive pyramids carved from the desert floor, their limestone faces once gleaming so brightly in the sun that ancient travelers called them the Light Hills. Towering over the Egyptian sands like something outside of time, the Great Pyramids of Giza are more than just monuments to pharaohs. They are riddles carved in stone, enigmas of engineering that continue to puzzle scientists, architects, and mathematicians alike. And while the modern world marvels at skyscrapers and digital wonders, nothing quite matches the sheer audacity of the pyramids. Not in age, not in size, and not in mystery. Built during Egypt's 4th dynasty, around 2500 BCE, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, also called Cheops, is the largest and most famous. Originally reaching a height of 146 meters, 481 feet, it remained the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4,000 years, longer than any modern marvel has ever held the title. It is estimated to contain over 2.3 million limestone and granite blocks, each weighing between 2.5 and 15 tons. These blocks were quarried, transported, and set in place with such precision that even today, with all of our machinery and digital tools, replicating the feat would be daunting. Some engineers argue it would be borderline impossible without cranes, computers, and GPS-guided systems. But the logistics are only part of the mystery. What truly baffles researchers is the perfection embedded in the structure itself. The Great Pyramid is aligned almost flawlessly with true north, deviating by just 3/60th of a degree. Its base forms a nearly perfect square with each side, measuring roughly 230.4 meters in length, differing by mere centimeters. The corners of the pyramid are aligned to the cardinal points with a degree of precision that would challenge modern instruments. And this was done in an era where, supposedly, the wheel had only recently appeared in the region. The question is, not just how was this built, but how could anyone build this with what we believe they had at the time? There are no written blueprints, no construction manuals. The Egyptians left behind no detailed records explaining the process. Theories range from massive ramps and counterweights to wet sand sledges and brute force manpower. But each theory carries significant problems. Ramps would need to have been larger than the pyramid itself, requiring enormous material and time. Investment. Logistical issues with turning, elevation, and alignment remain unresolved. And still, no physical remnants of such massive ramps have ever been conclusively found near the site. Perhaps even more astonishing than the engineering is the mathematics embedded within the structure. Scholars have long noted that the ratio of the Great Pyramid's perimeter to its height is nearly equal to 2, suggesting a knowledge of pi well before it was officially discovered. Other calculations suggest the builders had an understanding of the golden ratio, 1.618, and that they deliberately encoded it into the geometry of the pyramid. Some researchers argue this could be coincidental. Others believe it was intentional, reflecting a mathematical tradition that far exceeds what mainstream history attributes to ancient Egypt. Then, there's the alignment with the stars. For decades, researchers have observed that the 3 pyramids of Giza, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure appear to match the 3 stars of Orion's belt. The alignment is not exact, but close enough to raise eyebrows. In 1994, Robert Bauval and Adrian Gilbert published The Orion Mystery, arguing that the pyramids were designed to mirror the constellation as it appeared in 10,500 BC, an era long before Egyptian civilization officially began. According to Bauval, this Orion correlation theory suggests the pyramids were built not just as tombs, but as part of a grand celestial design. The shafts inside the Great Pyramid, too, point toward specific stars, Orion, Sirius, and others associated with the ancient Egyptian pantheon. Could it be that the pyramids weren't merely monuments, but messages encoded in stone? Messages meant to communicate something far greater than death and burial? Mainstream Egyptologists dismiss the Orion theory as speculative, citing lack of hard archaeological evidence and asserting that the pyramids were built solely as tombs. Yet the counter-argument persists. No mummies have ever been found inside the Great Pyramid. The sarcophagus that sits at the heart of Khufu's pyramid is unmarked and empty. Unlike later Egyptian tombs, which are richly adorned with texts, reliefs, and items for the afterlife, the Great Pyramid contains no hieroglyphs, no art, just stone. Enormous, echoing chambers carved deep inside a mountain of rock. If this was a tomb, it was the most austere in Egyptian history, and one that required feats of planning and labor beyond anything else in their known architectural tradition. There's also the problem of tools. The stones used in construction, particularly the granite in the king's chamber, are among the hardest natural materials on Earth. Modern-day stonemasons would use diamond-tipped tools or laser cutters to achieve similar results. The ancient Egyptians, according to official records, only had copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones, both significantly softer than granite. Yet the blocks are cut with angles, smoothness, and uniformity that suggest an understanding of advanced cutting techniques. Some researchers believe abrasives or primitive drills may have been used. Others speculate that lost tools, or even knowledge of sonic or heat-based stone shaping, might have existed, now lost to time. And this brings us to a much larger question. Was this technology homegrown or inherited? Many theories suggest the knowledge required to build the pyramids did not originate in Egypt at all, but was passed down from a forgotten source, a lost civilization, an older world whose traces have been erased by cataclysm, conquest, or simply the erasure of time. The notion of ancient high technology, a society capable of feats beyond what we see in the archaeological record, has gained traction in both academic and fringe circles. Proponents point to structures across the globe, the precision cut stones of Pumapunku in Bolivia, the massive monoliths of Baalbek in Lebanon, and the megalithic architecture of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Could there have once been a shared system of knowledge, A science lost in the deep past, remembered only in myths and monuments? The Egyptian records are silent on this matter. They attribute the pyramids to the pharaohs as a legacy of divine kingship, but the sheer scale of Giza challenges this simplicity. It suggests something more, something we still haven't fully grasped. Beyond the stones, geometry, and stars lies a deeper enigma, the unknown. For all the measurements taken, theories proposed, and simulations run, the truth is this: we still do not know exactly how the pyramids were built. Every modern explanation is a model, a hypothesis, an educated guess. No definitive consensus exists. For each new theory, whether it's the spiral ramp, the internal spiral, the water flotation idea, or the counterweight pulley system, another problem arises. Theories answer one question while raising three more. How were the corners kept square across such a vast footprint? How was each massive block leveled without a single digital tool? How were the internal chambers constructed with such precision, deep within the structure, without the benefit of large-scale scaffolding? And then there are the chambers themselves, quiet voids cut deep into the heart of the Great Pyramid. The King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, all accessible. But what lies deeper? In recent years, advanced non-invasive scanning techniques, such as cosmic Raman tomography, have revealed the existence of previously unknown voids inside the pyramid. In 2017, researchers from the Scan Pyramids project confirmed the discovery of a large, empty space above the Grand Gallery. They called it the Big Void. It's about 30 meters long and several meters high, yet no one knows its purpose. It's completely inaccessible by any known passage. Was it a structural cavity? A hidden chamber? A sealed tomb? Speculation ran wild, and once again, the pyramid yielded more questions than answers. There's also the mystery of location. The Great Pyramid is situated precisely on the geographic center of Earth's landmass, a fact that's rarely emphasized. It lies almost exactly on the 30th parallel north and sits at the intersection of the longest lines of latitude and longitude over land. Some researchers believe this placement is coincidental. Others see it as intentional, the result of ancient geodesic knowledge. That would imply a comprehensive understanding of Earth's shape and geography, millennia before Magellan circumnavigated the globe or Copernicus redefined its motion. Was this knowledge intuitive, spiritual, or mathematical? No one knows. What makes the Giza pyramids even more extraordinary is that they are just one piece of a much larger enigma. Across Egypt, dozens of pyramids were built, most smaller, cruder, or incomplete. Many are collapsed. Several show signs of hasty construction, inferior planning, or experimental mistakes. But the ones at Giza, and Khufu's in particular, stand apart, as if they were the culmination of some inherited knowledge, perfectly refined and executed once, then forgotten or abandoned. Later pyramids became more elaborate in symbolism and decoration, but none matched Giza's scale or engineering. This has led some to speculate that Giza wasn't just the beginning of pyramid building in Egypt, but the end of a tradition that reached its peak early and then declined. That perhaps the true origins of the Giza pyramids stretch back further than the 4th dynasty. Some researchers propose radical timelines, suggesting the monuments could predate Egyptian civilization altogether. They point to water erosion patterns on the Sphinx enclosure as evidence of extreme antiquity, far beyond the generally accepted 2500 BCE construction date. Though mainstream archaeology dismisses these claims, the debate continues, fueled by the sheer impossibility of the structure itself. Cultural memory plays a role too. The ancient Egyptians believed that their civilization descended from earlier gods, a mysterious lineage known as the Shemsu-Hor, or followers of Horus. These beings, according to legend, ruled Egypt before the first dynastic kings. The stories describe them as semi-divine, possessing knowledge and wisdom passed down to humanity. Could the pyramids be remnants of that forgotten chapter? If so, what knowledge was encoded into their dimensions, alignments, and placements? Others take a more grounded approach, suggesting that the pyramids are simply the result of obsessive labor, perfect planning, and a society entirely focused on divine kingship. That the ancient Egyptians, motivated by religion and state power, marshaled tens of thousands of workers for decades to fulfill the pharaoh's celestial destiny. But even this doesn't quite resolve the details. Obsessive labor does not explain mathematical constants encoded in stone. It does not explain astronomical alignments or the eerily precise knowledge of Earth's geography. There is something else at play, a sophistication that resists simple explanation. In modern times, the pyramids have become icons, printed on currency, sketched in textbooks, rendered in 3D software and video games. But in some ways, that familiarity has dulled their mystery. We forget how little we actually know. That the Great Pyramid is not just a triangle on the desert floor, but a machine of stone, silent, enormous, precise, whose original function and symbolic purpose we still cannot fully decode. Some believe the pyramids were more than tombs, that they may have served as energy generators, sound resonators, astronomical observatories, or even coded archives of lost knowledge. These ideas fall outside the mainstream, but they persist because no single explanation satisfies all the evidence. The pyramid is a paradox, fully mapped, yet fundamentally unknown. We've measured every stone, but we don't know how they were placed. We've dated the structure, but not explained its perfection. We've labeled it a tomb, but found no mummy. As we enter an age of ever more advanced technology, artificial intelligence, satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, the pyramids have begun to reveal new hints. But even now, every discovery leads to another layer of uncertainty. And maybe that's what makes them timeless. Not just their size or age, but their refusal to be understood. They are not just monuments to the dead. They are monuments to the limits of our understanding. And so they stand, immovable in the sand, shadowing millennia, daring us to keep asking, and reminding us with perfect geometry, celestial alignment, and impossible ambition that the past may still be smarter than we think. In the dense jungles of southern Costa Rica, where the air is thick with mist and the green canopy muffles sound, there lies one of the most quietly baffling mysteries of the ancient world. At first, they seem almost out of place, smooth, round, unmoving, like giant marbles abandoned by something far older than memory. They rest in riverbeds, lie half buried in mossy soil, or sit isolated in museum courtyards. But they all share the same eerie characteristic. They are nearly perfect spheres, carved from solid stone. Some are small enough to carry. Others weigh as much as 16 tons. Their surfaces are polished. Their curves are exact. And no one knows why they were made, who made them, or what they were ever meant to do. The story begins in the early 1930s, when workers from the United Fruit Company were clearing the jungle to expand banana plantations in the Dequees Delta region. As they cut through thick undergrowth and dynamited tree roots, they began to unearth large stone balls, at first a few, then dozens. The workers, unaware of their significance, reportedly rolled them aside, stacked them, or even blew them up with explosives. But some survived, and what they revealed has confounded archaeologists for nearly a century. Over 300 of these spheres have since been documented, scattered across the landscape of southern Costa Rica. Some are made from granodiorite, a volcanic rock similar to granite, while others are crafted from limestone or sandstone. Their diameters range from a few centimeters to over 2 meters, But the most incredible detail is their geometry. Many of the larger spheres are accurate to within a few millimeters of perfect roundness. That level of precision across such massive stones implies not only advanced craftsmanship, but a deliberate, methodical process of creation. And yet there are no quarries nearby, no partially carved spheres left behind, no tools, no inscriptions, no pictographs or glyphs to tell us who built them or what they meant. The people who made them left behind no written language, no oral tradition that survived intact. Only the stones remain, cold, symmetrical, silent. Mainstream archaeologists attribute the spheres to the defy culture, which flourished in the region between 700 and 1500 AD. These people were skilled artisans, known for their pottery and goldwork. But nothing else in their material culture, not their homes, their tools, their roads, comes close to matching the complexity or abstraction of the stone spheres. They didn't build pyramids or monuments. And yet here are dozens, perhaps, once hundreds of enormous stone orbs that required massive planning, coordination, and labor. Why would such a culture invest so heavily in shaping something so geometrically advanced and practically ambiguous? Some theories suggest the spheres were purely symbolic. Perhaps they represented celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, or the planets in some now forgotten cosmology. Others believe they may have served as territorial markers or status symbols, placed at the entrances of homes or ceremonial centers to reflect power and prestige. A few archaeologists speculate they were aligned intentionally in groups to mark astronomical events or cardinal directions, suggesting a kind of prehistoric observatory hidden beneath the forest. But many of the spheres have been moved over. The decades relocated to parks, museums, and private gardens, making it nearly impossible to reconstruct their original patterns and placements. There are even more speculative ideas. Some have suggested the spheres were navigational tools, markers on ancient trade routes that connected disparate parts of Central and South America. Others believe they functioned like ancient star maps, each sphere placed according to celestial positions now lost to time. And of course, fringe theorists have long pointed to the near-perfect geometry as evidence of advanced or even non-human intervention, a recurring argument whenever ancient artifacts defy modern expectations. But the truth is, none of these theories can be proven. Despite decades of excavation and research, not a single definitive explanation has emerged. No sphere has been found in the process of being made. No tools capable of producing such symmetry have been discovered nearby. Even with modern scanning technology, we still don't fully understand how the defy people achieved such perfection, especially without access to metal tools, lathes, or advanced surveying equipment, grinding and polishing giant stones into perfect curves with no standardized measuring system would be an exhausting, time-consuming process. Why do it? And more curiously, why do it so many times? What's perhaps most unsettling is the silence. The way these spheres seem to exist in isolation, disconnected from the rest of ancient Mesoamerican tradition. There are no known spheres like them in neighboring cultures. No Mayan spheres, no Aztec spheres, no Incan parallels. The phenomenon is uniquely Costa Rican, and even then, isolated to a relatively small region. As if a singular knowledge, a moment of precision and abstraction, bloomed briefly in one place, then vanished forever. Today, the spheres are protected as national treasures. Several are designated UNESCO World Heritage Artifacts. They are studied, photographed, admired. And yet, the deeper questions remain unanswered. Their original context has been lost. Their cultural meaning remains buried beneath layers of speculation and time. Even their original positions are uncertain, lost during decades of agricultural development and careless relocation. And so they remain Stone sentinels scattered across a landscape that no longer remembers their story. Some sit in the jungle, moss-covered and undisturbed. Others rest in front of government buildings, polished by tourists' hands. A few lie half-buried in forgotten fields. But no matter where they are, they seem to stare back, mute, round, perfect, refusing to explain themselves. In the end, perhaps that's the heart of the mystery. These spheres are not impressive because of what they do. They don't tell time. They don't hold secrets. They don't even pretend to have a purpose. They simply exist. Massive, smooth, deliberate, and unexplained. They challenge us not with complexity, but with simplicity, with roundness, with silence. And in a world that insists on answers, they offer none. None. Deep in the arid hills of southeastern Turkey, on a plateau scorched by sun and dust, lies a discovery that shattered the story of human civilization. For millennia, the winds blew over it, farmers plowed around it, and the earth guarded its secret without protest. But beneath the rolling land of Göbekli Tepe, a forgotten temple, older than history itself, waited to be found. When archaeologists finally unearthed it in the 1990s, what they revealed was nothing short of paradigm-breaking. A massive, intentionally constructed complex of monumental stone pillars, arranged in deliberate circles, carved with images of feng, animals and strange symbols, all dated to 11,600 years ago. Thousands of years before writing, before wheels, before agriculture, before what we even call civilization. This was not just an ancient ruin. It was a message from a forgotten world. For decades, archaeologists believed that humans in the 10th millennium BCE were still nomadic hunter-gatherers, living in small bands, surviving by tracking game and foraging wild plants. Cities, temples, writing, and monumental architecture were believed to have emerged much later, around 4000 to 3000 BCE. Yet Göbekli Tepe, with its 10 to 20-ton T-shaped stone columns, organized spatial design, and deeply symbolic carvings, predates all of them. It predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years, and the Great Pyramid by 7,000. And it did not emerge slowly or evolve over centuries. It appeared fully formed, complex, and inexplicably ahead of its time. The pillars are arranged in circular enclosures, some over 30 feet in diameter, with two larger stones at the center and smaller ones around the perimeter. Many of these pillars bear detailed reliefs of animals: foxes, vultures, snakes, boars, and scorpions, as well as abstract symbols that remain undeciphered. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The stones were cut and shaped with extreme precision, their flat surfaces and clean edges carved without the benefit of metal tools. At a time when humanity was believed to still be living in tents and caves, someone here was organizing labor, shaping stone, and thinking in architecture. And perhaps most astonishing of all, they buried it. Yes, Göbekli Tepe was not destroyed by invaders nor worn away by time. It was intentionally and carefully entombed under tons of backfill, dirt, debris, stone fragments, which preserved it perfectly for thousands of years. But why would a society capable of building something so elaborate go through the effort of concealing it? Was it for protection? A ritual closure? A cultural shift so dramatic that the site had to be erased? The answers remain elusive. Excavation of Göbekli Tepe began in earnest in 1995, led by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, whose meticulous work revealed the vast scale and importance of the site. But even Schmidt admitted, this site did not fit into any known category. It wasn't a city. It wasn't a burial ground. It wasn't a house or a farm. There were no tools, no hearths, no graves. There were no signs of agriculture nearby. And yet the scale of construction required hundreds, if not thousands, of coordinated workers. organized logistics, and shared purpose. So who were the builders? And more importantly, how did they feed themselves? Agriculture, the farming of wheat, barley, and legumes did not yet exist in this region, according to traditional archaeology. Neither did the domestication of animals. The consensus has always been that civilization came after farming, that food surpluses allowed for the rise of temples, labor divisions, and cultural development. But Göbekli Tepe turns that theory inside out. It suggests that the desire to build a sacred or ceremonial place may have preceded or even inspired the invention of agriculture. Perhaps it was not surplus that birthed the temple, but the temple that demanded surplus. This single reversal has shaken the foundations of our understanding of history. Because if people could organize on this scale without cities, farming, or political states, then the roots of religion, art, and architecture go much deeper than we assumed. Göbekli Tepe forces us to reimagine the very definition of civilization. It implies that belief in spirits, gods, the afterlife, or cosmic order may have been a unifying force before government, economy, or even food security. But Göbekli Tepe isn't just unique because of its age. It's also mysterious because of its symbolism. The animal carvings are precise and deliberate. Some scholars believe they represent totems, perhaps reflecting spiritual or clan affiliations. Others propose astrological interpretations. The now famous vulture stone, or Pillar 43, shows a set of images: a vulture, a disc, a scorpion, that some researchers claim corresponds to specific constellations, forming a kind of sky map dated to a specific point in the distant past. If true, this would imply not only spiritual significance, but celestial knowledge among the builders. Even more intriguing is that many of the T-shaped pillars are anthropomorphic, stylized representations of human beings. Some have arms and hands carved onto their sides, folded in front like figures standing in eternal stillness. These may have represented deities, ancestors, or cosmic guardians, but no one truly knows. There is no writing to explain their meanings. No oral tradition survived the 11,000-year gulf between them and us. Only the stone remains, whispering in forms we no longer understand, yet the mystery deepens. Göbekli Tepe is not a single temple. It is a complex of multiple enclosures, built across time. As excavation expanded, archaeologists discovered that new enclosures were constructed adjacent to older ones, with different styles, evolving techniques, and subtle shifts in symbolism. The site appears to have been in continuous use for over 1,000 years, suggesting an enduring cultural or religious tradition. And then it was buried, not destroyed, not left to decay, but intentionally sealed. Who made that decision? And what cultural or spiritual transformation caused it? Was it a final ritual, a defensive act, or the deliberate burial of something once sacred, now taboo? These questions remain unanswerable. Theories abound: climate change, social upheaval, external invasion. But the evidence is incomplete. What we do know is that after Göbekli Tepe was buried, its memory faded. Later, nearby cultures built smaller, less elaborate structures. The era of hunter-gatherer temple building ended as mysteriously as it began. Göbekli Tepe fell into myth. The burial of Göbekli Tepe is one of its most haunting features. It wasn't eroded or swallowed by nature. It was entombed by human hands. Over 500 years or more, the structures were filled in layer by layer, not with careless debris, but with a specific mix of animal bones, flint tools, and rubble. This wasn't an accident. It was ritual. The people who once worshipped or gathered here made a conscious decision to shut the temple down, and they did it with care. It's as if they believed that whatever power once resided here had to be sealed off from the world, not destroyed, but hidden. That singular act adds another layer of enigma to the site. Because buried temples don't just preserve stone, they preserve intent. They suggest a transition, a turning point in belief or culture that we can't yet see. Perhaps the people of Göbekli Tepe faced a crisis, spiritual, social, or environmental, that compelled them to leave behind everything they had created. Or perhaps they moved on to build something even greater, now lost beneath other hills. But without writing, we can only guess. And that is part of what makes Göbekli Tepe so surreal. It exists in a kind of temporal fog, a moment in deep time, that is both familiar and completely alien. The people who built it had no agriculture, no metal, no domesticated animals. And yet, they had vision, organization, a desire to shape the world into something symbolic, intentional, and beautiful. They were not brutes. They were thinkers. They were artists. They were builders, and they rewrote our story. Before Göbekli Tepe, archaeologists assumed religion followed civilization. That once humans settled, formed governments, and had free time, only then did they begin to create temples. But Göbekli Tepe turned that on its head. It showed that religion may have come first, that the urge to commune with the divine, to mark sacred space, and to build something lasting could have sparked the entire project of civilization itself. In many ways, it suggests that belief built the first cities, not the other way around. And yet, the questions just keep coming. Who organized the workforce? What kind of leadership structure existed? How did they feed the workers? Where did the people live while building the site? There are no residential structures around Göbekli Tepe, at least not yet discovered. This absence has led some to theorize that the site was a regional gathering center, a pilgrimage site where scattered tribes came together periodically to worship, trade, and bond. The labor may have been seasonal. The motivation may have been spiritual. The rewards intangible. But not all researchers agree. Some propose that Göbekli Tepe was part of a long-lost tradition, one that predated the rise of agriculture and spread across a much wider region. Other sites, like Karahan Tepe, discovered more recently, show similar T-shaped pillars and iconography. Could there have been a network of sacred centers across what is now southeastern Turkey? Was this a forgotten age of temples, one that predates history itself? And what of the symbolism? Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that the images at Göbekli Tepe encode astronomical data, seasonal cycles, or even catastrophic memories. One controversial theory proposes that some carvings record a comet impact, possibly linked to the Younger Dryas, a sudden period of global cooling around 10,800 BCE. If true, it would mean that these people were recording cosmic events, not just worshiping, but observing the heavens and remembering. A cataclysm. It's bold. It's not universally accepted, but it highlights just how much we don't know. For now, only a fraction of Göbekli Tepe has been uncovered. Less than 10% of the full site has been excavated. Beneath the surrounding hills lie more enclosures, more pillars, more stories, waiting for the dirt to be pulled back. Every year brings new discoveries, and with them, new questions. As technology advances, so too does our ability to peer deeper without destroying what lies beneath. But even with lasers, radar, and AI, we are still walking blind through deep time. There is something almost poetic about that. That in an age of space telescopes and quantum computing, we are still mystified by stone and silence. Göbekli Tepe is not just an archaeological site. It is a time capsule from before time. A glimpse into a moment when humans took their first steps beyond mere survival. When they looked up at the stars, carved their dreams into stone, and began to build meaning into the world around them. These stones are not ruins, they are declarations. They say, "We were here, we saw, we believed." we created. And then, just as mysteriously, they vanished. What remains is dust and wind, vultures and foxes carved in relief, and a temple buried under its own mystery. A monument that no longer belongs to a single culture, but to humanity itself. A reminder that history is not a straight line, and that the past is far more strange, far more advanced, and far more spiritual than we once dared to believe. Göbekli Tepe does not give us answers. It gives us awe. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything. In the quiet corners of rare book libraries, behind glass cases and dimly lit archives, lies a mystery unlike any other. Bound in calfskin and inked in faded sepia tones, it sits quietly, a book without a title, without an author, and most unnervingly, without a language that anyone can understand. This is the Voynich manuscript, an enigma that has haunted historians, cryptographers, linguists, and dreamers for over a century. Discovered in 1912 by Polish rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich, the manuscript has since resisted every attempt at decoding. Its pages are filled with delicate, looping script written in an alphabet found nowhere else in human history. The words are fluid, confident, consistent, but they mean nothing to any known system of human communication. And yet, it looks like it should make sense. The book itself dates back to the early 15th century, confirmed by radiocarbon analysis of its vellum pages. The ink, too, is authentic to the time. No signs of modern forgery. Inside, more than 240 pages unfold in a surreal dance of text and illustration. There are drawings of strange plants. Some look vaguely familiar, others utterly alien. Botanical forms with twisted stems and bulbous roots. Star charts and astronomical diagrams that defy current systems of understanding. Circular mandalas of symbols and numbers. And most bizarrely, pages of what appear to be nude women bathing in strange, interconnected pools, surrounded by pipes, stars, and tubes, as if inside some kind of organic machine. The manuscript is divided into sections: botany, astronomy, biology, cosmology, and pharmacology, though these terms are approximations based on what the images seem to suggest. Every section adds to the surreal dissonance. The style is precise but dreamlike. The script flows effortlessly across each page, suggesting fluency, yet the language itself has never been seen elsewhere. It is not a cipher of Latin or Greek. It does not share structural patterns with Arabic, Chinese, Hebrew, or any indigenous language. And despite more than 100 years of study, no one has cracked it, not even the most powerful cryptographic minds of the 20th century. During World War II, some of the best codebreakers in the world, including experts from the U.S. Army's Signal Intelligence Service, attempted to decipher the Voynich manuscript. They had cracked Nazi codes. They had broken Enigma. But the Voynich manuscript? It held firm. The text appears to have structure, word frequencies, repeated patterns, and syntax-like rhythms. But those very patterns are just different enough from any human language to break every standard of comparative linguistics. It has prefixes, suffixes, and internal consistency, but no semantic foothold. It resists meaning. That resistance has led to a wide range of theories. Some believe the Voynich manuscript is an elaborate hoax, a creation designed to confuse, impress, or profit. Perhaps it was meant to look mysterious and valuable so that someone in the 15th or 16th century could sell it as a book of secrets. The script could be invented gibberish, the drawings pure imagination. But this theory has its problems. If it were a hoax, it would be the most sustained and consistent forgery in history. The script follows internal rules too closely. There are no corrections, no crossed-out words, no hesitation in the ink. Hoaxes typically reveal their inconsistencies under close scrutiny. This book becomes more consistent the closer you look. Others suggest it is written in a lost or invented language, a personal code, or even a form of glossolalia, where a person writes in a trance-like state using a language that only makes sense to them. Still others go further, claiming the manuscript is the remnant of secret ancient knowledge, written in a symbolic or philosophical system now lost to time. Some believe it holds recipes, medicinal formulas, or alchemical instructions. Others say it could be an astrological guide for an unknown culture, or even a manual of extraterrestrial origin, encoded in a way human minds were never meant to fully grasp. Modern artificial intelligence has also tried, and failed, to translate the Voynich script. In 2018, researchers fed the manuscript into machine learning algorithms trained on dozens of world languages. Some results were promising. Statistical correlations with Hebrew or Old Turkish appeared. But without a cipher key or no references, even AI models can only speculate. No translation has ever been verified. Every breakthrough eventually hits a wall. The illustrations don't help much either. While they are detailed and rich with color, they often contradict what we know about the natural world. The plants are hybrids, leaves from one species, grafted onto the stem of another. The roots twist like nerves. The astrological diagrams don't match known star charts. The human figures, mostly women, seem caught in some fluid, symbolic ritual, standing in pools connected by artery-like tubes. Some float inside wheels or inside what appear to be organs. It's as if the book reflects a symbolic worldview that we've completely lost, one where science, spirit, and biology were part of a seamless language of symbols. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the Voynich manuscript is that it was never meant to be read by us. If the book had a purpose, it's been buried by time. The author is unknown. The place of origin is unknown. The language, the context, the goal, all unknown. The manuscript surfaced in Europe, but it could have come from anywhere. It passed through the hands of emperors, Jesuit scholars, and collectors. At one point, it ended up in the private library of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, who believed it to be the work of the legendary alchemist Roger Bacon. But there is no evidence to support that. It then vanished for centuries, only to be rediscovered in Italy in the 20th century. Now, it sits in the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University. Scholars from around the world continue to study it. Pages are scanned in ultra-high resolution. Forums are filled with codebreakers, historians, and enthusiasts offering new interpretations. But the manuscript endures, not as a book to be read, but as a mirror to our own limitations. A reminder that not all knowledge survives, that not all mysteries are solvable. Some riddles, like the Voynich manuscript, don't offer answers. They offer reflection. They remind us how much we've lost, how much we still don't know. And how easily knowledge can vanish, hidden not in distant galaxies, but in pages sitting silently on a shelf. Even in an age of satellites, particle accelerators, and artificial intelligence, there are places, quiet, weathered, and half-buried, where the ancient world still whispers back. These mysteries, scattered across deserts, frozen lakes, jungles, and forgotten pages, remind us of something humbling, that for all we've achieved, we still stand in the shadow of those who came before. We walk atop civilizations whose knowledge we cannot fully recover. We decipher fragments of languages we cannot speak. We excavate structures we still don't know how to build. The more we uncover, the more elusive the truth becomes. Because these aren't just stories of missing armies, stone circles, and secret books. They are stories of human imagination, ambition, and wonder, written in languages lost to time, etched in rock, encoded in silence. They defy logic not to frustrate us, but to challenge us, to remind us that mystery still exists, that curiosity is not a modern invention, it's ancient, perhaps even eternal. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we're not meant to solve every question. Maybe the unanswered is just as important as the known, because it keeps us exploring, questioning, and reaching further than before God. So as we marvel at ancient computers, buried in shipwrecks, temples older than the wheel, and languages no one living can read, we're not just looking backward. We're looking inward at the limits of our understanding and the boundless drive to push beyond them. Despite modern science and technology, these mysteries remind us how much we still don't know, and perhaps how much we still have to discover.